Now, I've got a lovely book here in front of me. As you know, I love my local history, and today we're going to be talking about a new book that's just out. It's got photos of Ipswich past and present, and it's a fascinating look at Ipswich over the last 150 years or so. It's been put together by historian Caleb Haugago. Have I pronounced that right, Caleb?
Hello. It's Caleb How'd-you-go, but don't worry, you're not.
Is it How'd-you-go? Is it really?
How'd-you-go? It is, yeah, it is, yeah.
What a such a great name.
Well, thanks.
And I was looking at you because you've got a blog and so on, haven't you, as well? And someone was asking if you've ever researched the name, because I think there are other Suffolk How'd-you-go's as well, aren't there?
Yeah, it's quite a local name, really. I think there's a few in Scotland as well, but we think it's got something to do with the Huguenots, who were like a Protestant group who came over, I think, kind of in the sort of 1600s, really, from France. So sort of, So that's where we think it comes from.
How do you get to be involved in history? Because you blog it, you've written this book as well.
Well, I went off to the University of East Anglia to study history and politics, and then I graduated in 2010. And since then, I was a teaching assistant for a few years, and it was a job where I actually, in the evenings and so on, I had a lot of my own spare time, and maybe I'm a bit of a history geek, but I started a local history blog as I kind of, maybe in a bit of a sad way, I missed writing essays at university. So that's how I originally got into doing the history blog. And it kind of went from there. And then about this time last year, I got contacted by publishers called Amberley Publishing, sorry. And they asked me if I'd be interested in doing this book for them through seeing the site. Yeah.
It's brilliant, though, isn't it? Because, I mean, it only touches on, for Ipswich, what's quite recent history, isn't it?
Yeah. So it covers sort of the past 150 years. It's sort of the main comparison between there's 90 photographs, 90 Victorian or Edwardian photographs, and then 90 comparative ones that I've gone out and taken the photographs of today. And then it gives a little bit of detail about, what's changed. Maybe some of the buildings have been pulled down or new ones have been built, that kind of thing, really, yeah.
Do you know, because people are really rotten about Ipswich, aren't they? But I actually, looking at the before and after photos, decided that Ipswich is not as bad as everybody says.
Well, I've done my job then.
You have.
Yeah, there's certainly an awful lot of nice places. I kind of think of Ipswich as a bit of an underdog town, really, because it has got, it's one of the most historic towns in the country, really. But I guess when you walk through maybe the town centre and the sort of the main shopping streets, it looks quite modern, I suppose, doesn't it? And a lot of things have been changed over the centuries. But hopefully, what I've shown in this book is that there are some really lovely pockets of really nice history there still. And
people need to look up as well, because the buildings themselves are beautiful, aren't they? If you actually open your eyes and look
Absolutely.
Up above shop line, aren't they?
Absolutely. And we're also incredibly fortunate with the amount of medieval churches that we've got in the town still. I think after Norwich, I think we're sort of one of the highest sort of for our size. We've got we do really well. I've got 12 medieval churches, so that's a really good number for a town our size.
Where did you get your original photos from?
A mixture of collections, really. So some from the Suffolk Record Office, so they were really helpful in there. And then also from the museum collections in Ipswich, and also the Transport Museum as well. So Ipswich Museum, Transport Museum, some private individuals as well, actually. Yeah.
Have you got any favourites?
Any favourites? I really like some of the ones of the waterfront, actually, because obviously that's such a change, isn't it? From the kind of the industrial past it's had, and then sort of now it's sort of been reimagined as kind of a marina, hasn't it? With sort of shops and cafes and things like that. So there's a real sort of quite startling change between some of those photographs, but you can still see the sort of sweeping line of the docks themselves, but with such a changed background.
I love the photo of the cattle market in 1856.
Oh yes, which is now the Portman Road sort of car park, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, looking because you've got Sir Bobby and his statue, and then the car park behind. But I mean, it must the photo from then. It's from 1856, and you've got the cattle, all the chaps in their hats as well. A totally different picture.
It really is, yeah, no, it really is. And that was one of the more complicated ones, actually, to figure out, because with a lot of these things, you're sort of trawling through bits of information at the record office or through history books and trying to figure out, because the cattle market, obviously, the cattle will move from one place to another, and you're sort of trying to work out actually where was this shot taken in that process. So eventually I figured it out, but yeah. So a lot of little bits like that were quite interesting.
And the photo, King Street and Arcade Street, I mean, they actually haven't changed a huge amount, but I'd never really thought about how or why it was built in the first place.
The King Street, and how the
arcade. So you've got that archway, so that it was built to give better access through to Museum Street, and everything.
Yes, yeah. That's a really interesting one because I don't know if you've heard of the name Jean. It's Jean Ingelow, I think, isn't it? Yeah, Jean Ingelow. She was an author who lived there as a child, and I'd not really known about that until I started looking into it. So quite interesting. I think she's a bit bigger in America than she is here, but or she certainly was in the past. But yeah, so she lived there with her family, and it was a branch of a bank, and then eventually got knocked through to how you can see it today.
Oh, I'm going to have to look her up. She's not someone I've heard of either. Did you learn a bit yourself as you were doing this?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm obviously interested myself anyway through doing the local history blog that I run, and but during the process, it forced me to research individual streets and buildings and so on. So it gave me like a really quite a nice sort of grounding actually in the sort of town's history in general, especially. Just little nuggets of information like just off the top of my head, St Clement Church. I don't know if you're aware of that church, but that's kind of sort of really it's quite sort of hidden really from the sort of road as you go past behind a load of trees. But it's a really historic church, and it's got Sir Thomas Slade, who designed HMS Victory, and there's like a little sort of dedication to him in the graveyard because he's buried there. So just little things like that, little nuggets that, it's quite interesting to think that actually sort of a local person designed HMS Victory. It's quite sort of little nuggets like that. I'm a bit of a geek, but I find that quite interesting.
No, yeah, it's all right. I'm a geek with you as well, because we always say that every story has a link to Suffolk.
Yes, well,
including that one. And I noticed in the introduction you said that did you know, for example, that Ipswich was responsible for building the first railroad and locomotives in China as well?
True story. Yeah, no, it is. So I think it was Ransom's and Rapier that were involved originally, but yeah, it was actually done illegally though.
So was
there was
it?
a bit of controversy there. Yeah, so a group kind of sort of in a not very good way sort of forced it upon these local people. I think it was between Shanghai and somewhere.
They forced the railroad through, did they?
Yes, it was called the Wusong Road, I think it was called, and they sort of forced it through illegally and eventually it got torn up and destroyed, but it was there for quite a while to begin with, yeah.
We're actually talking Ransom and Rapier a bit later on because they've got one of the reunions. Something I did find interesting as well in the foreword is talking about how Ipswich has sort of had times of real thriving, the manufacturing, and then times of poverty, and how you can see how the buildings were knocked down in the times of when we were doing well, and then how some of the buildings had to hang on, and that's why Ipswich is the way it is now.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, so that's very true. We've sort of gone through very long periods of decline and then prosperity. And in the good times, people who could build did, and they, obviously weren't so conscious of conservation as we are today. So they would just tear down the old stuff, and that's how we've got such a rich heritage and such a varied types of buildings in the town.
Well, thank you for taking the time to join us. It's a lovely book. I just love these. A fascinating sort of look. Whether you know Ipswich now or you knew Ipswich in the past, I think it's great to have a look at the pictures and sort of compare them. Thanks ever such a lot, Caleb.
Yeah, thanks for talking to me, Leslie. It's great.
And if people want to read your history blog, do you want to mention that?
Yeah, it's the address for it is www.ipswichhistory.wordpress.com. So if you'd be interested and you want to leave a comment or a question or anything like that, then I'd really appreciate it. That'd be great.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot. Take care.